Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Have you ever heard of a trial so captivating it's been dubbed the trial of the century?
Ooh, I love those.
Yeah. Well, today we're diving deep into one such case, the Alex Murdaugh trial.
Oh, this one's a wild ride. A tale of shocking murders, a powerful family, and secrets buried deep in the heart of South Carolina's Low Country.
Secrets, huh? Sounds right up our alley.
It's fascinating, really, how this case just peeled back layer after layer of deception.
Unraveling a world many wouldn't believe existed, just beneath the surface of a seemingly perfect life.
Precisely. Okay, so picture this. June 7, 2021, at the Murdaugh Family Hunting Lodge in Islandton, South Carolina. It's evening, and the Spanish moss is hanging from those ancient oak trees.
Sounds peaceful.
It does, doesn't it? But that peace is shattered when a horrific discovery is made. Maggie Murdaugh and her son Paul are found shot to death near the dog kennels.
Near the dog kennels.
Yeah. And the one who calls the police.
Don't tell me Alex Murdaugh. Maggie's husband and Paul's father.
You got it. He claims to have just discovered the bodies. But right from the start, something about his story just doesn't add up.
You know, there's this immediate cloud of suspicion hanging over him. And remember, this is the Murdaugh family.
A dynasty in the Low Country.
For generations, they held positions of power as lawyers and community leaders. Their name was practically synonymous with influence.
It's crucial to understand this context. It adds a layer of intrigue to the investigation.
It goes way beyond a double homicide.
Absolutely. This is a scandal that could unravel a family's legacy and expose the hidden underbelly of a seemingly idyllic community.
Adding to the mystery, there's another case looming in the background. Paul was facing charges related to the death of a young woman.
Mallory Booch.
In a boating accident.
Right. So naturally, people start wondering, was there a connection between these cases?
The rumor mill started working overtime.
And then there's this chilling text message. Maggie sent it to a friend just hours before her death.
Oh no, what did it say?
She mentions that Alex is acting fishy, like he's hiding something. It's a small detail, but knowing what happens next, it sends shivers down your spine.
Like something straight out of a true crime novel.
Totally. So investigators start digging, and they quickly zero in on Alex.
But he had an alibi, right?
He claimed he was with his ailing mother.
Seemed airtight at first.
Until cell phone data, including video footage with his voice, places him at the scene shortly before the murders.
Oh wow, the digital trail. It can be so hard to escape these days.
It really can. The prosecution used that digital trail to paint a very damning picture, suggesting that Alex's initial statements weren't just inconsistencies, but deliberate lies, all designed to mislead the investigation.
But of course, the defense team fought back.
Oh, absolutely. They attacked the investigation, highlighting what they claimed were inconsistencies in the evidence. They suggested the crime scene was poorly managed, possibly even contaminated, and questioned the reliability of some witnesses.
Classic defense strategy. Sow doubt, raise questions, and hope to create enough uncertainty to benefit your client.
Exactly. But in this case, the evidence against Alex was mounting.
And the stakes just kept getting higher. In July 2022, a year after the murders, a grand jury indicted Alex.
2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possession of a weapon during a violent crime.
Heavy charges.
The prosecution decided to seek life imprisonment without parole instead of the death penalty.
Any idea why they went that route?
It surprised some people, but it likely reflects a strategic calculation. By taking the death penalty off the table, they simplified the legal proceedings.
To potentially increase their likelihood of securing a conviction.
Precisely. Okay, now fast forward to January 2023.
The trial begins.
In the small town of Walterboro, South Carolina, Creighton Waters is leading the prosecution, and the defense is headed up by the dynamic duo of Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin.
Quite the legal team.
And presiding over this high-stakes battle is Judge Clifton Newman.
His own life story is pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It really is. He rose from segregated schools to a position of authority on the bench, a testament to his resilience.
And the changing times.
It's a small detail, but it adds this layer of depth to the narrative. Reminds us that the justice system is made up of individuals with their own unique backgrounds, and that these factors, however subtly, can influence the way justice is dispensed.
Adds a human element to a story that's already full of drama and intrigue. Now, the defense, they try to exclude testimony about Alex's alleged financial crimes.
Arguing it's irrelevant to the murder charges.
But Judge Newman allows it. Recognizes that financial troubles could have provided a motive.
This ruling was a big win for the prosecution. By allowing evidence of Alex's alleged financial misdeeds, the judge opens the door for a powerful argument that he was driven to murder by the impending exposure of his wrongdoing.
And speaking of drama, remember how the trial was actually interrupted? By a bomb threat. Talk about a scene straight out of a Hollywood thriller.
Right. Real life can be even more unpredictable than fiction. Anyway, the trial resumes, and the prosecution meticulously lays out their case.
Calling a string of witnesses.
First responders, friends of Paul, even former colleagues of Alex. Each piece of testimony builds upon the last, weaving a tighter and tighter web around the defendant.
One piece of evidence was particularly damning. Testimony from a close friend of Paul's. He says he heard Alex's voice in a video recorded by Paul just minutes before the murders are believed to have happened.
Directly contradicting Alex's alibi, placing him at the scene, making it increasingly difficult for the defense to maintain his innocence.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The prosecution's theory hinges on the idea that Alex was driven to murder to cover up his financial crimes.
They allege he'd been stealing from clients in his own law firm for years.
And the walls were closing in.
They allege he'd been stealing from clients in his own law firm for years.
And the walls were closing in.
Before we get into Alex's testimony,
Oh, I can't wait for that.
let's take a quick break.
If you're finding this deep dive as captivating as we are,
I mean, who isn't?
make sure you hit that subscribe button.
You don't want to miss any other episodes of Tell Me More.
We've got so many fascinating stories lined up.
All right, back to the courtroom.
Okay, so Alex takes the stand.
Remember that text from Maggie about Alex being fishy?
Oh. Yeah, that's right.
Well, under oath, he admits to lying to the authorities.
About his whereabouts on the night of the murders.
Tries to explain it away by claiming what he calls paranoid thinking.
Brought on by opioid addiction.
But the damage is done.
Yeah, I'd say so.
This admission is a major turning point in the trial.
Has to be right.
It erodes his credibility and raises serious questions about his truthfulness.
It also lets the prosecution paint a very specific picture.
A man spiraling out of control.
Desperate to protect his secrets.
At any cost.
And then comes another bombshell.
Lay it on me.
Alex confesses to stealing from his clients and his firm.
Wow.
Confirming what the prosecution has been alleging all along.
This is a stunning admission.
It really is.
It shatters any remaining semblance of the upstanding lawyer he once appeared to be,
The mask has slipped.
revealing the true depths of his deception.
I mean, this moment is crucial.
Absolutely. It shows the extent of his manipulation and how willing he was to exploit those who trusted him,
It also shows the power of the legal process to uncover the truth.
even when it's buried under layers of lies and deceit.
So the prosecution rests their case.
Alex's testimony, it raised more questions than answers.
Absolutely.
So now the jury has a tough job.
Sifting through weeks of evidence.
And conflicting narratives.
But their deliberation is surprisingly short.
Less than 3 hours.
And they come back with a verdict.
Drum roll, please.
Guilty.
On all counts.
Wow, a swift decision.
It really speaks volumes about the strength of the prosecution's case.
And the impact of Alex's own testimony.
Instead of swaying the jury in his favor, it seems like it sealed his fate.
The sentencing follows quickly.
2 consecutive life sentences without parole.
Alex Murdaugh, once a pillar of the community, now destined to spend the rest of his days behind bars.
It's a stark reminder that justice, while it can be slow, it can also be incredibly powerful.
And even those in positions of privilege and power are not above the law.
But the story doesn't end there.
You're right.
There's the aftermath, the family fallout, and of course, the lingering questions.
We'll dig into all of that when we come back for the final part of our deep dive into the Alex Murdaugh case. Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast for the final part of our deep dive into the Alex Murdaugh trial.
We've covered so much ground, haven't we? The shopping murders, the twists and turns of the trial, that guilty verdict, and even that bizarre auction.
It's been a wild ride. But like any good story, this one leaves us with some lingering questions, threads that just keep unraveling, even after the final gavel falls.
So let's shift gears a bit, explore some of the broader themes, the bigger implications of this case. What does the Murdaugh saga tell us about the world we live in? About human nature itself?
That's a great question. One thing that keeps coming back to me is the whole idea of legacy. That Murdaugh family name, it carried so much weight in the Low Country. Generations of lawyers, community leaders.
Initially, that legacy worked in Alex's favor, right? It granted him a certain level of privilege, of influence. But as things started to fall apart, it became almost like a suffocating burden.
Almost like he was trapped by the weight of expectations. desperate to maintain that facade of success, even though his own choices were leading him down a very dark path.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the most intense pressure comes not from outside forces, but from the expectations we carry within ourselves that need to live up to a certain image, to uphold a family name. It can be so incredibly destructive.
This case also exposes the dark side of ambition, wouldn't you say? I mean, Alex was obviously driven. He achieved a high level of success professionally.
But at some point, that ambition became twisted, toxic even. Like he believed he was above the rules,
Wow.
that he was entitled to bend the system to his will.
And it was that sense of entitlement, that belief he could act with impunity, that ultimately led to his downfall.
A stark cautionary tale, really. Ambition, when it's unchecked, when it's divorced from ethics, from a basic sense of morality, it can have devastating consequences, not just for the individual, but for everyone around them.
Another key takeaway, for me at least, is the insidious nature of secrets. Alex built his entire life on a foundation of lies and deceit, concealing his financial crimes, manipulating those around him to maintain this carefully constructed facade.
Secrets have a way of doing that, don't they? They fester and grow in the darkness, they poison relationships, erode trust, and ultimately they can lead to truly catastrophic outcomes.
And no matter how deeply buried we try to keep them, the truth always has a way of finding its way to the surface.
The Murdaugh case proves that. It's a testament to the enduring power of truth. It might take time, it might not always be a straight line, but ultimately justice can prevail.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to this one question. What does this case tell us about those we perceive as successful, as upstanding members of society? What's lurking beneath the surface?
It challenges us, doesn't it, to look beyond the facade, to question our assumptions, to acknowledge that even those who appear to have it all may be grappling with their own demons.
It's a powerful reminder that everyone has a story. And sometimes the most fascinating and the most disturbing stories are the ones we least expect.
And if you're interested in exploring this case further, there's a ton of information out there. Articles, documentaries, other podcasts. They offer a wide range of perspectives and interpretations.
We always encourage you to dig deeper, to engage with these complex stories, and to keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
Because the Murdaugh case makes it very clear. Things aren't always as they seem.
And on that note, this wraps up our deep dive into the Alex Murdaugh trial. Thanks for joining us on Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast.
See you next time for another captivating story.